record. We'll go ahead and take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Mario Savala is my permanency specialist. We're present, ready.
PD Hammonds for the father, Jesse Veach. We're ready, Judge. He's present.
Ryan Turman on behalf of respondent mother, Alexander Rogers. I am present. She does not appear to be present. I've had no contact with her still.
Stacy Zabala on behalf of Stephen.
Okay, so what do we have new since the court report was filed?
Yes, Your Honor. When it comes to the parents, Alexander, we did a diligent search on her. We did find her. She is located somewhere in between Illinois and Washington, which is completely two different states. Yeah, it's
Washington State?
Yeah. And the reason why is we don't know if she's been traveling here and there. But as of now, she is currently incarcerated. She has a very lengthy charges, like due to drugs. She has 3 court hearings, I think today in person. We just don't know what state it is.
Where's she incarcerated?
Oh, we think it's Illinois. We were really confused by it because, like I said, it gave us 2 states where she could have been located at, and we think it's majority of it. We think she's in Illinois.
Okay.
So we are getting the information of where she's incarcerated and where her court's at.
All right.
Yeah, we should. I think I should already have that by now. So I'm going to try to reach out and see what we can do about getting a hold of her. When it comes to Jesse, Jesse has completed the majority of the family plan. However, he just got an apartment at the end of August, early July, or at the end of July, early August, and he's been working pretty well at his job. I would like to see Jesse continue just taking care of himself and see if he's able to take care of the apartment. I went and did a home walkthrough. Stephen does have a completely furnished room that his uncle gave to him. Jesse also had a female that moved into the home. We did a background check on her. She does not have any type of criminal background. She wanted to be a caregiver for Stephen. However, that has been denied because she does have some past CPS history. She is labeled as a missing parent on one of her kids. But again, she has no criminal background. We have told her that she is able to move in and help Jesse financially be stable. However, she is not allowed to be left alone with Stephen. And I've made that very clear with the father that is not allowed. Other than that, Jesse has been doing pretty well. He's tested negative since December. He's completed, like I said, majority of the counseling sessions. The only thing that he really lacks is I would like to see him continue taking care of that apartment.
All right. So just a period of some stability.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
And then when it comes to Stephen, he did get moved to Katy, Texas. The uncle Chris Rogers had him, and he was having a little bit of difficulty with him. So he was placed in Katy, Texas. He is doing extremely well where he's at. They haven't had any incidents when it comes to Stephen. He plays with his feces. They've only had 3 incidents since he's been there. But he continues to be very monitored. And I call Stephen, and he said that he's having a great time. So.
What's his level of care?
Right. It's still basic, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Are we working on a reunification plan?
We haven't at this time, just because with Jesse just barely moving into this apartment and now having this individual move in, that is the only reason why we haven't started anything yet.
And what was her CPS history?
She had 2. That was she was listed as a missing parent. She said that she had a child that was sick. She was living in Oklahoma. The child was in Texas. And she claimed that the family kidnapped the child, and she just practically never went back and got the child back. So they listed her as a missing parent. She said that she still gets to she still gets to talk to the child. I think the child's already 7 or 8 years old, I believe. And that she does get to have small conversations with the parent who has them.
Any court orders out there that we know about on that child? I mean, is there legal action taken?
We didn't see anything.
Okay. How old is she?
She is 23, I believe. 24.
Okay.
She's 25.
She's 28, Your Honor.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Jesse.
28?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Veach, do you know anything about that situation?
Essentially, so what has happened is pretty much what Mario said is the baby daddy left to Texas with another woman and they attempted to adopt the child. And the court papers that were met for the court hearing for her to adopt or file against it or however that works, she never got the papers. So it went from her trying to appear in court to, keep her rights and so on and so forth. I don't know if she still does or does not. But she was never able to make it to court, so that's why she was filed as a missing parent, Your Honor.
And this would have been what? She would have been 20 years of age, maybe?
I believe so. It all happened relatively very early on in the child's life. I want to say maybe a year and a half.
And how old's that child? Do you know?
I want to agree with Mr. Sabala, around 7 or 8, I believe.
So she was very young at the time when all that was going on.
Yes.
Was father's family in Texas?
I have no idea. I know the father's name is Aaron. That's really about all I know. I've had a conversation with him. I've got to talk to her son as well. They have a good relationship still. I mean, they called, the child was sick last night or 2 nights ago, and he called her at 2 o'clock in the morning, like, hey, I'm taking the ER. They have a very good relationship, Your Honor.
Okay. But that's, Mr. Zavala, that's it as far as CPS history, not abuse, neglect, not. Okay.
No, Your Honor.
Is it okay for me to mute myself again, Your Honor?
Sure. Thank you. Does she work as well?
She just moved back here to Texas. So she is currently looking to be employed. I am working at Walmart and I have been working there since May 30th. And I currently provide over triple the income that I need for my apartment. And that's including bills and everything of the such.
Okay. Mr. Veach, are you in this lady, are you all involved? Or is she just purely a roommate?
Yes, ma'am. She's just purely a roommate. Yeah, she moved down here to help because I work the closing shift. I work at 1 to 10 o'clock. And she was just going to be here to provide as a caregiver for Stephen while I work. We're currently a little understaffed at work. So with the possibility of moving to a different shift, I didn't think was going to be very likely. I have talked to my boss and he will be looking to have me from an 8 a.m. to a 5 p.m. shift. So that way I can put Stephen in an after school program. So that way they are not alone with each other in any way, shape or form. And for Thanksgiving break and Christmas break, I will be putting him in daycare because I get the Thanksgiving and Christmas off.
Let me ask you, would she be willing to like do a parenting class or something?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, just moving forward, I think we're at the point that we need to start looking seriously at a reunification plan. And what I'm hearing is that, we've got a young lady who was probably 20, maybe 21 at the time. The father may have taken the child under whatever circumstances, but may have taken the child out of or to a different state, and her resources to do much about that at age 20 or 21, I suspect, were very limited.
Yes, ma'am. She's actually in the next room if you would like to speak to her personally. That is completely up to you, Your Honor.
Mr. Zavala, how much background information have we gotten on her?
We did an FBI check where she did it for herself. And there was no criminal history. And we tried to do, she said that she lived in 2 states and both states would not release information because I was in Texas. But as far as the FBI check came back clear, and then her Texas FPS came back.
Have you met her?
Yep.
She seem appropriate?
She was very polite, very responsive when I would talk to her. I just get really nervous, especially for the removal of why Stephen was removed. I get really nervous exposing Stephen to somebody who I just met. That's like my biggest concern.
Judge, I think one thing we may be looking at, and I don't know that Mr. Zavala and them have really staffed as far as how they're going to go about this, but I don't think dad and child have had in-person visits in quite a while. So we kind of wanted to see if we could get some in-person visits scheduled, maybe have this lady also part of that to see how they interact with the child, and let dad be in his apartment for a little more, make sure the stability's there, and then I know final's not on this till December, but kind of toward that point, maybe looking at placement or monitored return at that point, and then see how things go. But we kind of wanted to see, get some more in-person visits and get them used to each other a little bit before we move into anything else. So they'll be staffing and working on a reunification plan. They just haven't got it put together yet due to those issues that we're still working on.
And I mean, that's pretty much in line with what I'm thinking, that if she's going to be in the home and if she's appropriate with the child, it seems to me she could be, that would be a good, some support for dad. And, I mean, let's face it, with a kiddo, I mean, the most important thing is to have that backup. So, if you're a single parent, I would like to, Mr. Veach, if she's willing to, participate with us a little bit, I would certainly like to loop her in on some things, and I'd want Stephen to get to know her, and I would want, if she's willing to do a parenting class, that might give everybody a little more of a comfort level. I'd be more concerned if she had any kind of significant criminal history, quite frankly. So, anyway, let's see if we can't get some. I would like for them to have some in-person contact, obviously.
Yes, ma'am. It's really difficult with him being 12 hours away. Mm-hmm. I can cover at least half the trip there. It's just providing the 12-hour worth of gas back home. Because I would love to. I mean, it's just with the bills and rent and everything. I mean, I'm trying to get everything set up and everything ready, so that way when Stephen comes home, there's no worry. We're hitting our ground. We're putting our feet in the ground and we're starting off running.
Yeah,
I feel like
I get that. What can we do as far as getting an in-person visit arranged? What can St. Francis help us with here?
I can look into that, Your Honor. I've really never had we could probably see about transport, about getting transport to take Jesse over there, to transport him to there. Of course, I have to get that approved.
Or would it be feasible for them to meet, to like do something where they would meet in the Metroplex? Someone would bring the child from Houston to the, Fort Worth area, and dad could get to Fort Worth.
Yeah. We can look into doing that too.
Okay, well, let's start trying to figure out how we can get some face-to-face contact going.
Would it be possible, since my uncle Chris Rogers was already watching him, is there any way possible we might be able to have a conjoined meeting around there, if possible? Since Stephen's comfortable there, he knows Chris. And it's not, and I've made the trip numerous times before. Would that be
Where does he
something?
live?
No,
Where's
he
he
lives
live?
in Odessa, Texas.
Would St. Francis be comfortable with like a weekend visit with the uncle supervising?
That would be entirely up to Chris, just because Chris was the one that asked that we remove
Yes.
Stephen from the home.
I understand.
Yeah.
I just
Well-
figured I would talk to y'all about it first, and I would give Uncle Chris a call after the court and everything, and I would get a hold of Mr. Savala if he would agree to do it.
Worth exploring.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the child wasn't removed from his home because of a concern. It was, he was just struggling with kind of handling the child.
Yes.
Yeah,
sir.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, so it's not like he was taken out of that home because of some investigation or something like that. So, well, I like that idea a whole lot better. I mean, number one, it would give father and son a whole lot more quality time together, and might be a way then to introduce the roommate. You know, I'd really kind of like to have Mr. Veach and the child get to have a weekend, just them, before she gets introduced. But I don't know. Between now and December, I'd sure like to see that happen if the uncle's willing. You know, we might be able to get some holiday time together. You know, for Thanksgiving, we might. I mean, that opens some doors that we don't have otherwise. I mean, otherwise we're looking at, we got to have somebody bring him from Houston to Dallas, and you could have a 3-4 hour visit, and then everybody's got to turn around and leave. You know, it's just not ideal. So if the uncle is willing to work with us on that, that would be great. Okay. All right, then, Mr. Terman.
Judge, I have nothing to report, although I would ask Mr. Savala, as soon as St. Francis gets more details on the exact location of my client, if they would email me that information, I would appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Anything else, Mr. Terman?
No, Your Honor, sorry.
All right, and Mr. Hammonds?
Judge, I think everything you've been discussing with Jesse is exactly what we were hoping to propose today, is some increased visitation face-to-face if we can get it. Because as you mentioned, I think we're moving toward reunification. He's done everything they wanted him to do. The main concern was the use of not necessarily corporal punishment, but he was getting more physical with the child than he needed to. And then the marijuana use, and that's been corrected immediately. So. I think he's in a lot better place after some counseling and classes, and I think he's ready, like he said, to hit the ground running and move forward.
Well, and I think obviously, Mr. Veach, if we get Stephen moved home, we're going to want maybe the two of you to continue in family counseling.
Absolutely, Your Honor. Like I was discussing with Mr. Zavala when he came and visited my apartment. I will continue to provide all the same services that y'all have been providing for him as long as I can maintain it. I want him to have the best life possible. I had him when I was 17, and he was one of the best decisions that I've ever made in my life. And I want to continue to provide him with the best life I can.
All right, Ms. Zavala.
So Judge, you've hit on most everything that I was going to talk about. Stephen's a really cool kid. And Jesse's doing what he needs to. It is time to try to figure out where we go from here. I like the idea of looping in the roommate. If she's going to be around, we need to see how that goes. But I also like the idea of starting first with dad, getting him that time. If uncle can be a resource, I think that's a great idea, but I'm pretty flexible in terms of how I think all that should happen. I just think we got to start working that way. Now, Stephen still has some issues that we're trying to get to the bottom of. And I think we're trying to set up some appointments for him. But I think that that can be worked on in Dad's home as well. Just trying to figure out that one issue.
Yeah, I mean, he could continue in individual counseling, but I think family counseling, so that we don't end up, Mr. Reach, I tell kids this all the time, being a family is like being part of a team, everybody has to do their part. And hopefully we've made some progress with Stephen, and he's got a little better ability to regulate some of his behavior, and, where he's not pushing buttons, because kids do. Hopefully you're in a better place, that you're going to react differently and in a more positive manner. But I think the family therapy for a while would give you both an outlet. If you having some differences of opinions and some disagreements, it's a better place to talk through those. So, okay, well, I would really like, Mr. Svala, I would really like for you to explore this with Uncle and Mr. Veach. You can reach out to him. I have no problem with that. But that, to me, makes the most sense as far as getting Mr. Veach and the child back together, and start that process. So I hope that'll work out. Okay, then I think, everybody kind of knows, I think we need to start, we're moving in that direction. So Mr. Veach, yeah, you just maintain stability and do what you've been doing. That's good. And then I think the next big push is trying to get the face-to-face visits going.
I really appreciate that, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
All right, then I'll continue the department as temporary manager and conservator, and I'll continue Stephen's current placement. I'm going to find that there would be a continuing danger to return the child home today at this instant, but I think we are very much headed in the right direction. And we are set for trial on, December 5th of 2023. That's on a 9 o'clock docket. So in all likelihood, Mr. Reach probably won't go to trial that day, because I just think things are headed where we want them to head. And maybe at that time we can be looking at placing the child with you. We either extend the case and place the child, or a monitor return or something. But we're set that day. We'll hold that day, but just realistically, not sure that's what'll happen that day.
I understand.
Okay.
So the next court date will most likely decide when he might get to come home. I'm sorry, I'm a little unsure of the process, so I apologize, Your Honor.
No, it's okay. It may be that the department in St. Francis have already developed a reunification plan, and they'll just fill me in about that at the next hearing, and and then we'll move forward. So
Okay.
It's possible he could be home before then.
Okay.
So they'll be working on it.
And I know you were mentioning a weekend scenario. How would that exactly work? Would I need to come down for 4 hours for that weekend with May and Stevens face to face, or? I wasn't expecting that scenario at all, so that I figured I would ask if you could give me any details about that, if you can.
What I'm envisioning is, if the uncle is willing,
Yes,
that
sure.
we would get the child to his residence, and then you would be permitted to come and stay there for the weekend with him as supervising. You could spend the whole weekend, with Stephen. And no, it wouldn't just be for 4 hours or something. If the uncle is willing for you both to be in his home for the weekend, that's what I'm talking about.
I really appreciate that, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, then I'll see everybody back December 5th.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Judge.
Have a great day.
Correct.
She did. As far as
Thank you,
Mr.
Judge.
Herman's client, just so the court knows, paternity testing was done and he was found not to be the father. That was filed on 9/11 of 23. It just came back. But Mr. Herman's client is not the father per the paternity testing. So I didn't know if we want to just go ahead and address that, and Mr. Herman can go, since we won't be dealing with his client today.
Sure. Yeah, because I had a note that we need to go and get him dismissed, and that just leaves us with the unknown father. So,
Yes, ma'am.
because we ruled out Mr. Marugo before, and
Correct.
we're here today on our final. We'll take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. We're present, ready, Your Honor.
Ryan Turman, on behalf of respondent father Jonathan Estrada, I am present, ready. My client is not present.
Your Honor, I'm Tate Eldridge. I represent the unknown father. I'm present. The unknown father is not.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of Serafina.
And the mother, Shania Sanchez, is not present. My understanding, though, she has already executed an affidavit of voluntary relinquishment in this case. Also, then Mr. Turman's client, Jonathan Estrada, has been ruled out as an alleged father based on genetic testing. So he is not the dad. So at this time, I will go ahead and dismiss Jonathan Estrada from the case and Mr. Turman as his attorney. Any objection to me letting Mr. Turman go ahead and go on about his day now?
No objection, Your Honor.
No objection.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, have a good day.
All too.
All right, so that leaves us with Ms. Sanchez and the unknown father. Mr. Trout, you ready to proceed?
Yes, ma'am. Your Honor.
All right.
I'll have two witnesses today. I'll have Mel Tucker and Jennifer Campos.
All right, you can call your first witness.
Call Mel Tucker, Your Honor. And how are you familiar with that case?
I was assigned the case in the end of November 2022.
Okay. And how did the department become involved in this case?
Mother and baby were positive for methamphetamines at birth.
Okay. And were you able to meet with the mother?
Yes.
And what is her name?
Oh my gosh. It was Drew Blake. Shania Sanchez. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. And were you able to meet with the mother?
Yes, I met with her at the hospital.
And did you tell her why you were there?
Yes.
And did you approach her about the positive drug screens?
Yes, I did.
And on the drug screens, was it mother and baby were both positive, you said?
Yes.
And for what substance?
Methamphetamines.
Did the mother admit to any drug use?
Yes, she did.
Did she state when the last time she had used was?
It was right prior to her going to the hospital giving birth.
Okay. Was the baby born full term or a little early?
A little early, I believe. I was trying to see what she was born at 35 weeks.
Were you able to view the baby?
Yes.
How was the baby doing when you arrived?
She was in an isolate. They said that she was stable, but she was barely taking a bottle at that time.
Okay. Now, did mother tell you who the father of the baby was?
She gave two possible names, but wasn't sure.
Okay. And are you aware that both fathers that both the names she gave have been ruled out?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we're left at this point with an unknown father. There's no other name that she gave you besides those two?
No other name.
Did mother state anything about wanting to keep the baby or giving up her rights?
She did not want to keep the baby. She wanted to relinquish her rights.
Okay. And was that question asked or did she bring that up on her own? You remember?
I asked if she was willing to work services. She said no, that she was unable to do so, unable to care for the baby, and wasn't interested basically in quitting using meth.
Okay. Did she state anything about that when you mentioned going to rehab or anything?
I don't recall.
Did you meet with either one of the fathers? I know they've already been ruled out, but were you able to meet with them?
Yes, I met with Christopher Marugo. He was incarcerated at the time. And since he was given as a, potential father, I met with him and went over paperwork, and after we, removed, but I discussed it with him and he was on a paternity test.
Okay. And were you able to speak with Jonathan Estrada?
Well, I never met with Mr. Estrada face to face. And he denied it being his child and not wanting anything to do with it. So when I talked to him.
Okay. Did the baby have any complications from birth?
She just wasn't eating very well. And that's all I can recall. She wasn't eating her. Yeah.
Did mother have prior CPS history?
Yes, she had 3 other children that she did not have in her care.
Does she still have rights to those children?
No.
Okay. So rights on her other children have been terminated?
Yes, as far as I know. She has no rights to it.
After mom left the hospital, were you able to meet with her again?
Yes. That's when I met with her, and she signed a relinquishment.
Okay. Now the department filed for removal and was granted, the baby was removed due to the mother wanting to give up her rights and not knowing who a father was. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And due to the positive drug screens and the danger to the child.
Yes, sir.
And you believe that was in the best interest of the child?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall where the child was placed once it did leave the hospital?
With a foster home, in a foster home, a licensed foster home.
Okay. Is that same home that had the other child that was recently terminated on? Do you remember?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Sorry.
So the child was placed in a sibling home.
Yes.
Okay. Now you said you did meet with the mother at a later time when she left the hospital.
Yes.
And that was in hotel she was living in?
Yes, she and her boyfriend were at the Red Roof Inn off of I-40.
Okay. And mom still stated that she wanted to relinquish at that time?
Yes, sir.
And did you go over paperwork with her?
Yes, we went completely through the form and discussed everything, and she wanted to go ahead and sign it, and we did all that.
At any time, did you explain to mom that she could have an attorney?
Yes.
And did she at any time ask for an attorney in order to go through this paperwork?
No, sir.
She just wanted to go through it and get it over with?
Yes, sir.
Did the mom sign a relinquishment on the 10th day of December 2022?
I'm not sure the exact date, but it was right after.
I apologize. I'll back up real quick. Well, I read that date wrong. The 6th day of December, I believe it was.
Yes, and that's when it was filed.
Okay. Did you review this relinquishment?
Yes.
And you saw exhibit number 1 that I sent out?
Yes, I got it right here.
Did the respondent mother, did she sign the relinquishment?
Yes.
And were there 2 witnesses to the relinquishment?
Yes.
Was it notarized?
Yes, sir.
Did you personally sign a consent to designation as managing conservator for the department?
Yes.
And was this filed on December the 6th, 2022?
Yes, sir.
Do you believe that it would be in the best interest of the child to terminate the mother's parental rights based upon the mother's affidavit of voluntary relinquishment?
Yes, sir.
And is that what the department would be asking for today?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Tucker, thank you very much. Have a good day.
Call Jennifer Campos, Your Honor. And are you familiar with the case we're discussing today involving the child, Seraphina?
Yes, sir.
And how are you familiar with that case?
I'm the permanency specialist on the case.
Okay. Throughout this case, I know we just heard testimony that mom had signed a relinquishment prior to you getting the case. Did you ever have any conversations with mom?
No, sir.
So you never were provided any other possible fathers?
No, sir.
Did you ever try to reach out to mom at any time during this?
No, sir.
Both dads, as we've heard testimony on also, that were named have been ruled out for paternity testing, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you receive what I filed, exhibit number 2?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell me what that is?
The paternity registry?
And was this filed in February of 2023?
Yes, sir.
And does it show that any father had filed an intent to claim paternity as to the child?
No, sir.
Due to no names, not knowing who the possible fathers are, and nobody has registered, are you asking the court today to terminate the parental rights of any possible unknown fathers based upon failure to register with the paternity registry?
Yes, sir.
And as I asked Mel just then, are you also asking that mother's parental rights to be terminated based upon her voluntary relinquishment
Yes, sir.
and waive all other grounds besides the voluntary relinquishment?
Yes, sir.
And do you believe that terminating the rights of the mother and of any unknown father is in the best interest of the child?
Yes, sir.
Is the child still in the same placement?
Yes, sir.
In child's with the sibling?
Yes.
Is that family willing to adopt?
Yes, sir.
Are they set up to adopt at this time?
Yes, sir.
Do we know what kind of timeline we're looking at if parents' rights are terminated today?
I'm not for sure on a timeline, probably a couple months, maybe. I'm not 100% sure exactly.
But due to that, they've already adopted a sibling?
They are working on adopting a sibling. Yes.
Okay. So maybe these two would be adopted at the same time.
That's what we're hoping
Are
for.
they still working through the licensing process, or are they through that part and working on something else?
I believe they're already licensed.
Okay. All right. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Zavala, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I do think it's in Serafina's best interest that parental rights be terminated with mom on the relinquishment that was provided, as well as the unknown father. I got to see her yesterday. She's precious. Got to see her with brother. And I'm excited to see that adoption go forward in the future.
All right, thank you. Okay, as stated earlier, at this time I'll dismiss Mr. Estrada from the case and his appointed counsel, Mr. Turman. I find by clear and convincing evidence that it is in the best interest of the child to terminate the unknown father rights, if any, based on Texas Family Code 161.002B3 is failure to register with the paternity registry. I find by clear and convincing evidence it's in the best interest of the child to terminate the rights between the child and the mother, Shania Sanchez, based on her voluntary affidavit of relinquishment of parental rights under Texas Family Code 161.001, subsection B1K, and the best interest under 161.001B2. This time I'll name the Department of Family and Protective Services as the permanent managing conservator of the child, and I'll dismiss all court-appointed attorneys from the case, with the exception of Ms. Zavala, who will remain as the child's attorney and guardian ad litem. Counsel, as always, your de novo time frame does begin to run since I've rendered an open court, and do not file a notice of appeal if you're instructed to do so until a final order has been signed and adopted. On our final, we are conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and an agreement of the parties. We are also live streaming, and Ms. Taylor is making our record. I do not have the mother, Joanna McKinley, nor the father, Douglas McKinley II, in my waiting room. They are not present. They have not logged in. Counsel for both are present. Ms. McKinley and Mr. McKinley have appeared before the court on at least one prior occasion. They were present on for an adversary hearing, and I don't believe, I'm just double checking, but I don't believe they have been present for any other hearing after that. Ms. McKinley was personally served. Mr. McKinley was never personally served, but he did appear before the court. He also did apply for a court-appointed attorney, filled out a statement of procedures, And at that point in time, I determined he qualified and Mr. Eldridge was appointed to represent him. So I think certainly he's constituted an appearance and has submitted to the jurisdiction of the court. All right, having said that, we'll take announcements. If anybody has any contradictory information to what I've just stated, then we can certainly talk about it and take that up.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. We're present, ready, Your Honor.
Natalie Archer for Joanna McKinley. I'm present and ready. I've not been able to reach my client.
Your Honor, I'm Tate Eldridge. I represent the father, Douglas McKinley, and I've not had any contact with him in ever.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of the child.
All right. Mr. Trout, how many witnesses do you have today?
2, Your Honor. I'll have Ms. Spencer and Ms. Brooks.
All right, Mr. Trout, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I call Michelle Spencer. And how are you familiar with that case?
I was a supervisor assigned to that case.
Okay. So you're testifying today due to the investigator assigned to this case at the beginning is currently out. Is that correct? And
That's correct.
And unavailable to testify today.
That's correct.
Does the department keep regular records in its cases
We do.
as a regular course of business?
Yes.
Are the entries in these records, are they made at or around the time of the events occurred?
That's correct.
Are those entries made by someone with personal knowledge?
Yes,
Do you have access to those records?
I do.
Are you a custodian of records?
Yes,
Have you reviewed the records on this case?
I have.
Are the removal affidavit and investigative report made part of these records?
Yes,
And are those filed with the court?
they are.
And have you reviewed those records?
I have.
Ms. Spencer, how did, according to the records and your work in the case as the supervisor, how did the department become involved in the case?
We received a report on September the 4th of 2022. The concerns in the report were neglectful supervision of Dominic by Miss McKinley.
And was this at a new birth?
It was.
And what did was the report stating was the neglectful supervision?
There was concerns in the report because Dominic tested positive at birth for methamphetamines as well as did Miss McKinley.
Okay, so mother and baby both tested positive.
Yes,
Was, according to the records, was the worker investigator at the time able to meet the parents at the hospital?
she was.
Did she speak to him about the allegations and what we were being involved with?
She did.
And did she approach the mother about the positive drug screens?
She did.
And did mother admit to it or deny? Where would she go on that?
She denied to my investigator that she was using any substances.
Did she state how she possibly could be positive?
She did. She told Miss Valenzuela that she was poisoned in an alcoholic drink or an alcohol drink that she had.
Okay. Did she say who poisoned her or if she knew?
She did not say.
Did Miss Valenzuela, was she able to observe the baby?
She was.
And where was the baby at that time?
At the time, the baby was in NICU at the hospital.
Was the baby born early?
Yes, the baby was.
Do you remember how early?
It was either 29 or 30 weeks.
Were there any complications from the birth?
The baby was born breech, so there were some complications with that as well.
Okay. And due to that, was a C-section performed?
Yes,
Was the baby, did it have to have any equipment or while it was in the NICU?
yes, the baby was on a CPAP machine, and I believe there was also a feeding tube and some other stuff with the baby in NICU.
Okay. Now, when she met with the parents, was it found was the mother? Do you remember her name?
I just forgot her first name. I'm sorry. Joanna McKinley.
And who was the father?
Douglas McKinley.
And they were both present when Ms. Valenzuela met with them.
They were.
How did the interaction go between Ms. Valenzuela and the parents?
It didn't go very well. They weren't real receptive and weren't real cooperative with Ms. Valenzuela when she was at the hospital.
did they make any statements about where this case would be going or our involvement?
They basically told her the case would be going away, and that we didn't have any reason to be involved with the family.
But mother didn't deny being positive. She just denied how she was positive.
Correct.
During the course of the investigation, how did parents stay around and visit with the baby, or how did that?
From what I recall, they had only seen the baby in 2 or 3 visits while the baby remained in the hospital.
And do you remember how long the baby was in the hospital?
I don't remember exactly, but I want to say like 3 or 4 weeks.
So going on what you're remembering, 3 or 4 weeks, you're saying the parents only saw the baby a few times.
Yes.
Okay. Did they ever state they were going to visit and then not show up?
Yes.
Did Ms. Valenzuela ask the parents to drug screen for her?
She did.
Did they ever drug screen?
They did not.
Do you remember how many times they were asked to drug screen?
I know it was several times. One time, I believe Miss McKinley did actually go, but she was upset that we had asked for a hair strand and refused to do the hair strand and said that we were being intrusive.
Okay. Did she do the UA at that time?
She did not.
So even though she went, she refused both tests.
Correct.
Okay. Do you remember, do parents have CPS history?
Not in Texas, but in California they did.
Okay. Did during the initial, I believe it was the initial contact with parents, did dad state how many children they had?
Yes, he did.
Do you remember what that number was?
I believe it was 11.
Do they have, to our knowledge and from what we've seen of the CPS history, do they have custody of any of those children?
No, they did not.
Okay. Where did you say the prior history was that we know of?
California.
And did they have recent history from California?
Let me see. I believe the last report that we were aware of in California was also in April of 2022.
Okay. And do you know what happened in that case?
There was, I believe their rights were terminated on, I don't remember the number of children, but their rights were terminated on some of the younger children that were still in California.
And did mom and dad discuss this, that California had removed children from them?
They did.
Okay. Did they make any claims as far as those removals?
They said that California unlawfully removed their children. First they denied, then they said that California unlawfully removed their children, and they had $1 million lawsuit that they had pending against the state of California.
Okay. Due to the positive drug screens that came back at birth on mom and baby, the parents' refusal to drug screen for the department, and the sporadic visitations and contact with the department, did the department feel that it was necessary to remove the child?
Yes.
And was that for the child's safety due to the allegations of drug exposure?
Correct.
Do you believe that that was in the best interest of the children?
Yes.
Once the child was removed, how did contact with the parents go?
Very minimal. There was a little bit of phone contact, I think a couple of text messages and maybe an email, but not a lot of response from the parents.
Okay. Do you know, and if you don't know, just say that, but do you know, once the child was removed, were visitations set up?
I believe it was attempted because we attempted before it went on over to the St. Francis side, but we were not able to set up anything for our side of it.
Okay. So to your knowledge, even after the removal, parents did not contact us or cooperate with doing visitations?
My understanding, yes.
What type of searches did Ms. Valenzuela do to try to locate parents during this time? Do you remember?
At some point, they had provided an address in Oklahoma. I don't remember the exact address, but we sent law enforcement out there to try to do a welfare check to try to confirm that they lived at that address. numerous text messages, numerous phone calls, to no avail. Were we able to corroborate that they actually lived in Oklahoma at that address provided?
Okay. Did Ms. Valenzuela receive information that they were possibly still in Amarillo at one point?
We did at one point. There was some information that they were panhandling in Amarillo, out by the Dairy Queen, out by Toys R Us, I believe. No, by Target, I'm sorry. And so she went out there several times trying to look in the area to see if she could see them out there, and we didn't find them out there.
So after they left, besides a few phone calls, but actually after the child was removed, besides a couple of phone conversations, Ms. Valenzuela was not able to establish any more contact with the parents.
Correct.
Did she check the jails just to make sure?
She did.
On a couple of different occasions?
She did.
And appears she probably tried different phone contact with them.
Yes. Yes, she did.
And so you do believe it was in the best interest of the child to remove due to the parents' behaviors and the positive drug screens?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Archer?
When you mentioned visitation, was distance part of the problem? The distance
The
between
parents alluded to that. Yes.
Okay. Did they say they would have trouble financing a trip?
Yes and no. They did say that, but then they also said they would fly into Amarillo twice a week.
And
So
then
we kind of got both sides.
And then
Okay.
did they ever?
Hang on, y'all were talking over each other. Ms. Spencer, if you go ahead and repeat your last answer.
The parents did tell us that it would be a financial problem, but then they also told us they would fly into Amarillo twice a week. So we kind of got both sides of the story on that.
And did that ever happen? Did they ever?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Did Mrs. McKinley ever submit information to the department on Indian heritage?
Submit anything? No, but they did claim that they were Indian heritage, Choctaw, I believe.
Okay. Did she provide any other documentation about the
No,
case?
they said it. I'm sorry. They said no, that it was all burned up in a house fire.
Were you able to verify a house fire?
No.
So how many times do you think Miss McKinley contacted the department?
Well, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 times total, maybe a little more.
I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Eldridge?
I represent Mr. McKinley. Did he make any effort whatsoever to reach out to you guys?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of.
He refused the drug screens as well.
Correct.
And this Ponca City address, that's the only one I have. Is that the address that he gave you guys?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And we don't even know if that's a true address.
We had sent law enforcement out there and there was some discrepancies in the address. So we don't know if it's a real address or not, or for them.
Okay. And the questions that Ms. Archer asked, I assume these were presented to Mr. McKinley as well, and his responses were the same?
Yes.
Okay. So he's just really not done anything.
Correct.
Okay. So, Your Honor, I guess that's all I have. I'll pass the witness.
All right, and Ms. Zavala?
When Ms. Valenzuela was meeting with the parents, did she discuss with them if there was any family that could be possible placement?
In the initial visit, yes, she did.
And that's standard procedure to talk about family options with parents in those beginning stages.
Correct.
At that time, did they identify anyone?
They mentioned Douglas had a brother, I believe, in Dallas, but there was no further information provided.
And they were provided with the caregiver resource form to fill out, correct?
Yes. Yes, they were.
And they did not do so.
Correct.
So Ms. McKinley has contacted the department several times, so she knows how to do that.
Correct.
And even if a caseworker had changed or someone else was involved, if she had contacted the department again at a later time during this case, she could have been directed to who to speak with.
That's correct.
And pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Trout, anything further of this witness?
Nothing further from Ms. Spencer, Your Honor.
All right, and any objection to Ms. Spencer being released at this time?
I have no objection, Your Honor.
No objection.
Objection.
All right, Ms. Spencer, thank you very much. You're free to go about your day.
All right, thanks, Judge.
Cole Brooks, Your Honor.
All right.
And how are you familiar with that case?
I am the caseworker on the case.
And you are a recent, fairly new caseworker on this, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I took the case over in June.
Okay. And you've reviewed the records in the case?
Yes.
And they are records that are made in the normal course of business with St. Francis, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Are at the time of the records being made, are they made by someone with personal knowledge?
Yes.
And are you a custodian of records?
Yes.
You had the opportunity to go back through the case prior to when you had it.
Yes, sir.
And are reports routinely filed with the court?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Brooks, what is St. Francis kind of first steps once you receive the case?
Once I received it, or when
Once St. Francis does.
we set up an icebreaker meeting for parents to meet placement so they can have a good relationship and get to know more about the child. Placement does. Then we have a family group conference to go over the family plan of service for both parents and start the child plan of service so we can get that established for the child. And from there, we have a parent support worker that helps the parents get their services set up. They help us with this routine assessments that we do on the parents. And I go out and make contact with them every month and see where I can help out with that. And we go on with the case. And if they need any help, they can notify me and I can get them the help they need. And we just stay in constant communication with them.
Okay. Were those things done on this case?
Yes.
Or attempted?
Yes.
Were they attempted to be done on this case?
Yes, sir.
Were family plans of service generated for this case?
Yes, sir.
And tell me a little bit, what are family plans of service?
They are the services that we set up that we think the parents could benefit from in order to achieve permanency with their child to help themselves.
Okay. And is that part of reasonable efforts to try to prevent termination and to hopefully reunite the parents?
Yes, sir.
Were family plans of service generated for this case?
Yes,
Did you receive what I sent out, exhibit number 1?
I did, sir.
And what is that?
This is their family plan of service.
Is that a accurate copy of the family plan that was generated for this case?
Yes, sir.
And was this filed with the court?
Yes, it was.
Was it also made in order of the court that the parents worked with?
Yes, it was.
Judge, I'd ask to admit exhibit number 1, which is the family plan of service that Ms. Brooks just had. Throughout the life of this case, before you got it and up until you got it, how has contact been with the parents?
There has been no contact. We were provided a number at the beginning of the case. It was attempted contact almost every time. We could not get a hold of mom. There was no phone number for dad, so that was the number we're using for him as well. Since I've got the case, I've sent letters. I have done a search on dad and mom. I haven't received those back yet. I've called every month. I did get Miss McKinley's email from Miss Archer, and I emailed and have not received anything back there either.
Okay. And since you've had it just approximately, or if you know exactly how many, you said monthly, do you try them once or twice? On this case, have you tried them once or twice or just once a month, or how many times have you tried to reach out to them? Do you know?
In July, I tried them twice because we did have a hearing in July. Last month, I tried them 3 times. I sent in my search last month at the end of the month. And then this month I have tried 3 times.
Okay. So you've had the case for 3 months, essentially 3 months, and you've tried at least 8 times.
Yes, sir.
To contact them. And have you received any contact, any response, anything?
No. And I sent letters the 11th of this month and I have not gotten them returned back from sender saying the address. So I'm assuming they received those. I just haven't heard anything, and it had all my contact information on it.
Okay. If the parents needed, even though they've changed workers, the parents had the paperwork from the beginning of the case, so they knew how to contact St. Francis if they needed to.
Yes, sir.
So even if the worker changed, such as it did in this case, if they called the prior worker, she'd be able to tell who was on the case or direct her to somebody that could.
Yes, and they also they have the office number too, and they can direct them.
Okay. Now back to the family plan of service that was admitted as evidence. Did parents ever start any services?
No, sir.
Have they ever called to attempt to start any services?
No, sir.
Briefly, can you kind of tell us what was required in this family plan of service?
We were requiring drug screens monthly. We required them to do individual therapy, OSAR assessment, psychological assessment, parenting classes. And from there, we could move on if we need be adding services to their claim.
Okay. So did they do parenting?
No.
Did they do OSAR?
No.
They do counseling?
No.
Did they ever drug screen?
No, sir.
So out of everything that was in here, they did not complete, nor did they start any services.
No, sir.
Visitations. How many visitations have the parents had?
We've had none since they've been with us, since they've been with St. Francis.
Okay. So the child has been in care for longer than 6 months
Yes.
and placed in foster care right now?
Yes, sir.
And do we know the living situation of the parents?
No.
Do we know where they live?
I have an address in Impact, and I was told in Oklahoma. I don't know if that's correct, but that's the last known address I have for them.
Okay. And mother was actually served at an address in Oklahoma. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you aware that we attempted to serve dad at the same address and it came back as bad address?
Yes, I am.
So we're not sure if they're still at that address that mom was served at.
No, sir.
So do you believe or do you know if parents can provide a safe and stable environment for the child and provide for its needs?
At this point in time, I'm unsure.
And parents, you said, have had no visitations in right at a year since the child has been removed.
Yes, sir. And that's due to not being able to get a hold of them to set those visits up.
Have parents reached out to you to set up any visitations or to ask about them?
No, they have not.
I know at the beginning of the case, there was some talk as far as travel and being able to get here for visitations. But do you know, did they ever follow through on any of that or try to notify St. Francis if they were in town to set up visitations?
To my knowledge, no, they didn't.
Do you know about the Indian heritage?
I'm aware of it. I know we haven't received anything back on that from the parents.
Okay. Your Honor, I would ask the court just to recognize that we did send a letter to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and we mailed it out I believe it was in July. We got a receipt in August that they did receive it, but we have not heard back any information from them. We've not got a response back on that. And that was filed the letter was filed with the court, Your Honor.
Was there a response filed as well?
No, man, like I said, we have not gotten any response back from them. We did send a letter, and the information that mom had sent us, her handwriting of what it was. We sent all of that to the Bureau, but we have not received an answer from them.
Okay. I thought you said, did you get some kind of confirmation from them? That they received it?
The certified receipt that comes back in the mail, we did get that the Bureau did sign for it. I believe that was in first part of August, but we have not received any information since then or response from them.
All right.
Now, Ms. Brooks, is the Department of St. Francis today asking the court to terminate the parental rights of the mother, Joanna McKinley, and the father, Douglas McKinney, as to the child dominant, based upon failure to work services, constructive abandonment, since they have not seen the child in the year that the child has been with the department, and placing the child in danger
Yes, sir.
due to the positive drug screens at birth.
Yes, sir.
Do you believe that that is in the best interest of the child?
I do.
How we spoke a little bit earlier about the child. How is the child doing now?
He's doing great. His first birthday was at the beginning of this month. He's thriving in his placement. He's being shown love and care. All his needs are being met. He did start a Mother's Day Out program, and he's interacting with kids very well. So I have no concerns with the placement he's with.
Is this a possible adoptive placement?
Yes, sir.
Are they set up to adopt? Or are they going through that process to get licensed? Where are they at that? Do you know?
They have voiced to me they want to adopt. They're said they're waiting, or they had waited because they didn't know how this case was going to go. But as soon as they heard which way it was going to go, they were ready to become licensed and want to not to adopt.
Okay. So are they, there's no plans anywhere in the future to move placement of this child?
No.
We're planning on keeping it with this.
Hold on, guys. We lost the judge.
Oh, thought she was just holding her headrest still there for a little bit.
We don't need a judge to do these cases. We're on our own.
And you believe that that is in the best interest of this child?
I do. That's all he's known since he was born. So.
And is this is the placement, is it his original placement?
It is.
So he has been there for the first and only year of his life.
Yes, he has.
I'll pass the witness at this time.
Did my client ever mention maybe the older siblings taking the baby into care?
I was told it was mentioned to the previous caseworker. I was not left a phone number or anything. I do know when it was mentioned, the child that was mentioned to was going through a sex change and did not know if they could take the child.
Were any of the other older siblings contacted?
The child that was contacted said she'd notify other siblings, and if they agreed, they would all get back with the caseworker, and it was, they never got back to her.
Do you know if my client ever took parenting classes on her own?
No, I'm unaware, ma'am.
Okay. Did you ever see any tax returns showing her employment and address?
I have not.
Okay. Do you know if the prior caseworker had those?
I'm unsure.
Were video visits ever offered to my client?
We would offer them, but like I said, we haven't been able to get a hold of them to be able to offer those.
I'll pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Eldridge.
You know, they've covered everything. I don't have any questions, John.
Ms. Zavala?
Ms. Brooks, I know that you weren't the caseworker then, but do the records reflect that Kyra, I believe Smith, was contacted in February of this year, one of the older children that Ms. Archer was referencing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And at that time, Kyra stated that she was unable to be placement.
Yes.
And there's been no further contact from Kyra or any of the siblings at this point.
No, ma'am.
Back, I believe in July, I believe Ms. Archer provided a possible new phone number for mom. When you reached out to mom, did you try that new phone number?
I did. I tried that all of August, and I tried at the beginning of this month, and I went ahead and tried the old phone number just to see if it worked again. And all times I've called, I've gotten a message that said it was out of service and there was no mailbox set up, so I could not leave a voicemail.
As you stated, Dominic is placed with his original placement, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you aware that while he was still in NICU, they were up there 2 to 3 times a day visiting him?
I was. That is what foster mom did tell me.
I have no further questions. I pass the witness.
Okay. Anybody have any further questions of this witness?
No, we are.
So you're
Okay. All right, Mr. Trout, do you have anything further?
Nothing further, Your Honor. Oh, let me ask one more question. I'm sorry. Ms. Brooks, I know we went over that the department is asking for termination of the parental rights due to the abandonment danger presented due to child being born positive and for failure to work services. Is the department also asking the court to grant the department permanent managing conservatorship?
Yes, sir.
That's all, Your Honor. I'll pass.
All right, Ms. Zavala, do you have a recommendation to make?
Yes, Your Honor, I do believe it is in Dominic's best interest that the parental rights to both parents be terminated at this time. Based on all the evidence presented, he is thriving in his placement, and I do recommend that he remain there.
All right, thank you. Okay, council, I'm gonna see everybody council will have a bench conference. Let's see. All right. Thank y'all for your patience. I think everybody had rested and Ms. Zavala had even given a recommendation. My concern is that we've got some unresolved ICWA issues in the case. So we're going to just recess at this point in time. I'm going to just say that I will liberally allow everyone the right to reopen their cases, because as this evolves, there may be some new information and new things that are going to develop. Ms. Katie, we need a reset date that's as close to the 90 days as we can get, because I think there's some legwork to be done. Everybody take a look at it. And you know, Daniel, if you look at this and y'all have a difference of opinion, you know, I'm happy to entertain whatever research you do and see if we're okay where we are right now.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, so but just in an abundance of caution, I don't want to forge ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
So okay, then, thank y'all. I appreciate everybody's appearing today and your patience, and I'll see everybody back December 19th. You know, unless this is resolved earlier, we can always try to move it up.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you all so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Judge, may I speak to Ms. Archer?